Survivor Australia versus the World is continuing its explosive rampages. We head into the merge of this absolutely epic season. We are watching legend on legend of the game clashing in this battle for the ages of Survivor. And so I am back after week 2 to analyze the edit of episodes 4 through 6 in order to predict who I think is going to win this season when all of the dust settles. But quickly before we hop into it, if you don't know how Edgic works yet, basically in every episode of Survivor, I look at the edit that each character is given in that given episode in order to give them a very specific rating for how I think that they were edited in that episode. There is a regimented system that has been used for many, many years on how to analyze the edit of each character. There are 3 parts to a Edgic rating. The first part is the type of edit. It can be UTR for under the radar. You didn't see very much of them. It can be MOR for middle of the road. You saw a little bit of them, but they weren't super fleshed out. It can be CP for complex personality, which means you saw a good amount of them and they were pretty fleshed out. Or it can be OTT for over the top, which means you saw way too much of them proportionally. The second part of an Edgic rating is the tone. It can be P for positive, N for negative leaning tone, M for mixed. They had a little bit of both. Or it can be no letter at all for neutral tone, no specific tone leaning any way or the other. And finally, the last part of the Edgic rating is the number, which is basically just a visibility scale from 1 to 5 on how much you saw them in the episode. 1 for you didn't see them very much at all. 5 for you saw a lot of them in the episode. And so we will now hop into talking about each of our fallen players as they have gone out this week. We talked about, of course, Rob, David, and George in week 1. And now we are going to talk about 3, again, sad eliminations. Every elimination in this season is sad, but, you know, we got 3 sad ones again this week. I'll go over the 3 people that were left out, and then I'll go from top to bottom alphabetically on what I think the Edgic rating is for each person. And I've already given ratings for episodes 4 and 5, and then I will come up with my ratings for episode 6, as that's the most recent one, as we go along. So the first person to talk about is, of course, Tony, who we lost back in episode 4. Man, I'm bummed to see Tony go. I was enjoying Tony on the season. I love Tony. I think that what was really sad to see Tony go in the season is I expected him to go pre-merge. I thought he was just in a really tough position, and he was. I didn't really know what he'd be able to do. Now, I think he honestly played better than I could have even expected him to. I think he honestly did a really good job. He just was in such a tough spot just based on the makeup of the tribe. I don't think there's much he could have done other than find that key or find that idol. I don't think there wasn't many spaces for him to slide into to make it past when he did. So I'm impressed that he made it to episode 4. I think he got screwed over a little bit by the twist. I think that if the immunity challenge was a normal immunity challenge, they would have blown out of the water and the Aussies would have been going to tribal. But it is what it is. Tony had to face the music, and I gave him an OTT4, over the top 4 rating for that episode. We saw a lot of Tony in that episode. You could even maybe give it a 5, but I gave him a 4 at the time. Some of these are a little bit slapdash, these ratings, because we get so many episodes in a row in a week. It's tough to like put them all together in the moment because I have to think about all the episodes going on at the same time. But I gave Tony an OTT4. I don't think that he was portrayed necessarily one way or another. It was just a lot of Tony in the episode. I know that I was rooting for him. I felt like he was kind of like an underdog figure. That's why I gave him a positive tone in episode 3. He was kind of being painted as like an underdog, I felt like. But in episode 4, maybe not as positive for him. But I don't think it was negative, especially compared to all of our other boots that we have sent out so far, who have all gotten like kind of negative or at least mixed tone ratings. I felt like Tony, a neutral, just chaotic, crazy edit for Tony that I would expect. So hats off to Team TV. RIP. I really would have loved to seen Tony on the jury. We never got to see Tony on a jury before, so that's the biggest bummer to me. I really wish that they would have just put everybody on the jury. I mean, they're leaving 4 guys off the jury. Rob, we also have never seen on a jury before. I really would have loved to see those people on the jury on the season, but it's the way it goes. So, and then, of course, we hit the merge, and then we lost Sarah, who, I like Sarah was so interesting this season. I enjoyed her on the season. I felt like she was a really fun, kind of unique character, I guess. I love Sarah. Sarah was my winner pick way back in 20. Well, I didn't watch the season 2017, but when I watched Australia season 2017 years later, she was my winner pick for who I thought might win that season. I've loved Sarah for a long time. I was very excited to see her play on this season, and I'm glad that she brought it. I mean, she was engaged. She was doing a lot. I don't necessarily think she played all that well, but she didn't just sit there and do nothing. She didn't get purpled. She was there to play, and so I really appreciated what she had for the season. I gave her complex personality -3 for episode 4 because I felt like we got a lot of kind of negativity of her like kind of flipping on Kirby and like going and snitching to Janine and Luke that she was thinking about flipping, and it was kind of just a weird situation there. I definitely felt like just very negative. There was points, this might have been episode 3, but I know there was a point where she talked about how she never gets her way or something like that, and so I feel like that was just kind of a reoccurring theme for her, that she was just kind of contradicting herself and also just like failing to achieve what she wanted to achieve. So that's why she gets the negative rating. And I gave her a middle of the road -3 for episode 5. She actually got 0 confessionals in episode 5 when she got voted out, shockingly, which is very different than the previous 4 boots who I gave over the top edits to, all 4 of them. Sarah, I just gave a middle of the road because I felt like we still got I felt like she was still a big chunk of the episode, even though she got 0 confessionals. I still felt like I saw a good amount of Sarah in the episode, but still negative, untrustworthy, much more negative, honestly. Like really, not kind of a dunking on poor Sarah edit, I think, in that episode, both painting her as untrustworthy and just like dunking on her as like a bit of a dodo, I guess. But I'm sad to see Sarah go, but glad to see her on the jury at least. So we'll keep seeing more of her at the end of each episode, which is nice. So that's it for Sarah. And then in episode 6, we have our big boot to talk about, which is, of course, Kirby. Wow. That's a big move for Kirby to go out here. I felt like Kirby was definitely one of the most important characters in the season up to this point. For Kirby to go out at this time is pretty shocking. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm like crazy surprised game-wise. It just feels like that's just like a big swing, but based on how kind of disproportionately edited this season has been, which I know has been a conversation a lot online, that it's, classic Australian Survivor doesn't love balanced edits. They love very unproportional edits to give to different people. I was hoping for like this very short season filled with all legends of the game, we'd get a little bit more of a balanced edit, but that doesn't necessarily seem to be the case so far. And Kirby was one of those characters that was actually getting a pretty big edit, really being built up as a new thing. We got like multiple new nicknames for Kirby in this season. We got like the Rebel Princess. We got the God Slayer. We got the Black Mamba. I think we even got something else at some point. So, I mean, Kirby just furthered her icon status in this season. I really hope that we get to see Kirby play again at some point because, I mean, she brought so much to this season. And I gave her I gave her a middle of the road 3 in episode 4. I'll be honest, episode 4, I didn't do the ratings on the day in episode 4, and then I watched the next episode on Monday, and I was like a little bit behind on doing the ratings. So some of the ratings for episode 4 might be a little bit off, but it was the best I could do because I was too busy on Sunday to be able to do the ratings. So give him a middle of the road 3. I felt like we saw her in that episode. You know, we saw her talk a little bit about wanting to flip the vote and maybe like try to save Shonee, but I felt like it was like an episode that she's slightly lesser involved in than she was in other episodes. And compared to other people in that episode, I felt like it didn't feel like the biggest episode for her. So that's why I gave her middle of 3. And then for episode 5, I gave her complex personality mixed 4. Very big episode for Kirby. We saw a lot of her kind of wanting to take out Sarah and flip on her. And there was a lot of kind of like, I give mixed tone because it felt like there was positive. People wanted to work with her and she was, you know, a big player, but also like there was wariness there. And I think that bleeds a lot into my perception on Kirby in episode 6 as well, in that I think that this was, honestly, I would probably give her arguably the same rating. Maybe we go over the top with it. Actually, you know what? I think it is. I think I might give her an over the top mixed, I don't know about 5. I think I go 4 on it. Felt like there was a lot of Kirby in this episode. She was such a focal point. I was not that surprised to see her get voted out in episode 6 based on the way the edit was going. I felt like there was so much attention on her and her like constantly checking in with Parvati. And it was like always talking about being the ride or die, but everyone being like, Kirby's kind of doing too much. Kirby has blown up the Australians. You could even argue it's an over-the-top negative edit for her, but I think there was still like reverence. Like she was still like, it was still like, oh, she's like such a big dog on this season. She's like really running things. It could be a negative. It could be a mixed tone. Honestly, you know what? I might, let's go negative on it. Why not? I honestly don't think there was that much positivity. I mean, the only positivity really was probably coming from Parvati, but I mean, even Shonee flipped on Kirby kind of in this episode. So she kind of lost everybody based on making the Sarah move, which I thought at the time was not a good move really for anyone involved. I felt like none of those people should have been voting out Sarah at this point. I felt like it was really beneficial for them to just get the votes split and then vote out someone from the other side. Keep the majority, and then you can make your decisions afterward. It's, you know, I think that Luke and Janine were both spot on in this episode where it was like, you know, you made a big move, sure, but like now we're all screwed. Like, you know, it's kind of like get the majority first, and then you have options. Then you can flip because you're not on the back foot. But now Kirby especially really put herself on the back foot here by taking out her own ally first. Before getting the majority, and now, she kind of was on the bottom, and everyone kind of wanted her out, and so she got voted out. But man, what an experience! The Kirby train this season was so much fun. I had a great time watching her, and I hope to see her again. I think that she will be missed on it this season. So we will hop up to the top and go down alphabetically, starting with Cirie. Cirie's edit in episode 6. I feel like Cirie, I don't think that she was like overly involved, but I felt like she had pretty good at it. We saw her talk with Janine quite a bit. We saw her, Janine was kind of like flipping her to maybe vote out Kirby. We saw her talk to like the internationals about that idea. I don't know, they need we're calling them the International 3, something like that. Lisa, Kass, and Tommi. I loved the confessional from Cirie, where she was like, Kirby is a big slab of meat. If I'm not going to finish it, I better not start it. And so I feel like Cirie was very involved in kind of getting the Kirby vote to go. I felt like this was kind of like a equal parts Janine and Cirie move. Like Janine kind of planted the seeds, but Cirie's the one that really like leveraged all of her relationships to kind of make it happen. I feel like this was a good episode for Cirie. I'm trying to think, would I give it positive tone? Maybe. I mean, I felt like she was shown to be like kind of trustworthy to the international three. I don't know if it's necessarily like Edgic tone rather than just like Cirie is such an effervescent person and it's so easy to like her and want to root for her watching her on screen. So I might give her a complex personality 3. You could maybe make it a positive, but that's kind of the spot I'm thinking of right now. I give her a complex personality 4 for episode 4. I felt like we got quite a bit from her in that episode. I think she had the most confessionals of that episode. And then complex personality 3 in episode 5. Again, I just feel like Cirie's been pretty consistent. It hasn't felt like she's been too extreme in the edit, but she's been there. We've been getting a sense of her. She's been making good quotes in each episode. Yeah, I think the Cirie's edit has been solid thus far. Then let's move on to Janine. Janine, wow. Finally, big episode for Janine in episode 6. I gave her a complex personality 3 in episode 4. That was like the first time I felt like we really started to kind of hear her perspective. We heard her talk a little bit about kind of her perspective on the like George and David votes and how I think that was that the episode that she kind of started to make the final 2 with Luke. That's kind of where they officiated it. And so we heard a little bit more about kind of her perspective on the tribe there. I gave it under the radar 2 for episode 5. I felt like we didn't really see much of her again. Felt like we were back to the first 3 episodes for Janine there, kind of. But wow, episode 6, pretty explosive. We finally got a really focal episode. This was kind of the opening point here for Janine, breakout episode. We got who talk about being a godmother, her kind of leveraging relationships with people, going up to Cirie and kind of subtly implanting this idea of taking out Kirby. We saw her, and Luke talking about how they need to divide and conquer. This was a great episode for Janine. I don't know if it was like an over-the-top episode. I think I would go complex on it. I would maybe, dare I say complex personally positive, just because it felt like this was like such a bombastic episode for her. It felt like she got a lot of credit for this move. I don't know if it's necessarily positive, but I think so. I might even give it a 4. It felt like this was a focal episode for her. 4 is maybe extreme. It should maybe be a 3, but that's how I'm feeling. I'm feeling a 4 on it for Janine. Big episode for the godmother. Episode 6, we are then moving on to Kass. In episode 4, I give a complex personality 4. That was kind of Kass's breakout episode. I felt, she just had a lot more perspective. I wanted to get Tony out. That was really felt like that was her move. And so that was, she was really the driving force of episode 4 in the way that Janine was kind of the driving force of episode 6. I give a middle of the road 2 in episode 5. Didn't really see a whole lot of her in that episode. And then here in episode 6, I feel like not a lot from Kass. I feel like I don't really recall much of what she was involved in this episode. I do have some confessional charts that I have not consulted yet, but I will consult them now just for fun. We can pull these up here. This is the numbers. If we look at episode 6, Kass with a 0 confessionals in this episode. So, I mean, I also have confessional time, but that is probably unnecessary since she clearly got 0. So, Yeah, I'm thinking we'll probably back to an under the radar. I'm not sure it's enough for an under the radar 1, but it's probably enough for an under the radar 2, I would say. Usually under the radar 1 I use for pretty extreme cases, invisible for very extreme cases, which Kass, I like never used the invisible rating, which she got that episode 2 because I don't remember at all in the episode. Also, I'm like the vibes Edgic guy, okay? I'm not like, I use these charts for reference, but I'm doing it based on what the episode felt like, I'm not like trying to over craze it. But yeah, that's how I'm feeling on Kass. Lisa, I gave her an under the radar 2 in episode 4. Yeah, shockingly little from Lisa. I was kind of surprised. It felt like all of like the focus was put on Kass, and Kass really driving the Tony vote in a way that like Lisa was like barely involved in that, which I felt like was weird. I felt like based on episode 1, I would have thought Lisa would have been given more credit for that move, but she was not. It was really given to Kass. So I feel like that's not great for Lisa's edit. I gave her a middle of the road 2 in episode 5. Again, I felt like just not very much of her. And I feel like, again, in this episode, I mean, we can look at these charts again, 0 confessionals in this episode. And so I think I have to give her the same edit, the same rating that I gave Kass and Under the Radar 2. I mean, did either of them have tone? I mean, I guess Kass did have the stuff where, like, Parvati didn't trust her. I mean, you know what? Just for fun, let's give it Under the Radar negative. Or even under the radar mixed. Actually, under the radar mixed tone too for Kass in this episode. Because there was that stuff of she kind of was getting thrown under the bus. And Parvati was like, I don't know if I can trust her and whatnot. But I don't know if that was necessarily like a bad thing for Kass. So, yeah. Yeah. You could even maybe give it under the radar 3, honestly. That's a little extreme. We'll stick with that for now, for the international 3, or the 2 of them. Moving on to Luke. Luke, I gave a complex personality 3 in episode 4, and I gave him the same rating in episode 5. I think that similar to Cirie, I think Luke has been very consistent. We've been, hearing from him pretty consistently, his thoughts, his perspective on things. I think not pushing too much one way or the other in terms of tone. And I think that this was a pretty good episode for Luke. I felt like we saw quite a bit of him. I definitely took note of him being the first person we heard from, I believe, when we came back from the previous tribal at the beginning of the episode. And I thought that was interesting that Luke was kind of the person we got that immediate perspective from. It wasn't from the people that pulled off the move. It was from Luke, who was the one that was hurt by the move the most, I guess. And so I thought that was interesting that Luke kind of got that credit when he wasn't necessarily that involved in what happened. I don't know if I would say this was a positive tone episode for Luke, but I do think it was a more elaborate episode for Luke than we've gotten the past couple of episodes. I think that Luke has been given a little bit of grace. He could easily be given kind of the type of edit that King George was maybe given back when he was around. Kind of like a dodo edit, because it seems like Luke is consistently voting wrong every time. But I do think that Luke is a very talented player, and I think that he is still in good social positioning and still has a sense of what where to position himself, even if he's not necessarily getting his way or on the right side of the votes of every time. And I think that the edit feels like it's leaning into that a little bit for me. It feels like it's been kinder to him than it could have leaned the opposite way and made him look like a dodo, but it's not. It's willing to give him credit for the things that he is doing right, and he does have good reads. He was right about Kirby making the wrong move to take out Sarah. He was right to be upset about that. He was right to divide and conquer with Janine to try to just figure out any way for them to survive. Yeah, I think this was a good episode for Luke. I'd give him probably a complex personality I'll give it a 4. I felt like, similar to Janine, I felt like we saw quite a bit of Luke in this episode. Let's take a look at the confessional time counts, just because I think it's kind of fun. You got a minute 24 in the confessional time. Janine got a minute 25. So, I mean, look at that. I mean, they're pretty much on par in this episode. So, yeah, I'll give them a complex personality 4. Seems pretty accurate to me. Parvati. Whew, what a huge episode for Parvati. We've been consistently getting huge, massive episode edits for Parvati. I'm a little bit conflicted on Parvati's edit here. I think I want to give her an OTT because I felt like we got way much more from her than we needed to. I'm trying to decide between a mixed and a negative tone here for Parvati. I gave her a complex personality -3 in episode 4. I felt like she was kind of the villain in the dynamic there between kind of her and Tommi. I felt like, I don't know, I just felt like she was there was a lot of talk about her not being trustworthy, Kass, and then they didn't really trust her as much, and they didn't like that she was trying to defend Tommi. And then I gave her a complex personality -5 in episode 5. I felt like we got a lot from her, but not necessarily over the top, just like a lot of complexity there. And mixed, like people wanting to work with her and have a reverence for her, but still kind of, negative tone. She also like got the cookies and stuff, so mixed tone there. I'm kind of thinking an OTTN here for Parv. Either an OTT 10 or an OTT mixed, but I don't know if there was positive tone. I felt like she was painted a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a little bit, why can't I think of the word? Oh my gosh. Like she was a little bit wrong. Paranoid. That's the word. Paranoid is what I'm looking for. She was a little bit paranoid when she kind of heard about Kass. She kind of got played a little bit in that instance. I thought that was interesting when that was included. And then she kind of like flips on Kirby, and Kirby's like super upset at her. And I don't know. I feel like this was a kind of villainous and also a little bit like paranoid, not making the right decisions edit for Parv, not having power. So without necessarily the positive tones I got from like the previous episode. So yeah, I think an over the top negative, and I think I might give it another 5 because she was so involved in this episode, way too much. If we look at the confessional charts, I mean, look at this. She has 2 minutes and 35 seconds in that episode, which is crazy. 9 confessionals supposedly on the count, so most of the episode by some margin, so easy to give her another 5 there. Shonee, I gave Shonee a middle of the road 3 in episode 4, similar to Kirby. I just didn't have much to say. I gave her a complex personality 3 in episode 5. Now in episode 6, I think we're going back to a middle of the road here for Shonee. I felt like this was like one of her least episodes. I felt like she wasn't super involved. I think we kind of got just like one scene from her, really, of her like talking to Luke and being like, I'm ready to kind of drop Kirby and go in a different direction. And they had a little bit of a joking about the sharks in the water. I'm interested to see what her confessional time was this episode. We got 29 seconds, the same as Kirby, which is a little bit crazy. So, I mean, I'll give her a middle of the road 3, I think. Yeah, I mean, just kind of, I think not much going on here. I mean, was there tone here for Shonee? Not really. I mean, she kind of dropped Kirby, but I don't think that was painted as like a good or bad thing. It was just sort of like a thing that was happening. She was just kind of moving on from that alliance, I guess. So, yeah, that's kind of how I'm thinking on Shonee here. And then we get to Tommi, who I gave it under the radar 2 in episode 4. Shockingly little for him, especially when Tommi gets voted out. I would have thought we would have got more, but again, all the focus was on Kass really in that episode in terms of the International 3. In episode 5, I felt like he was the focus of the International 3. I gave him a complex personality +3. You know, I felt like we got you know, a little bit more from him. He talked about like wanting to draw the rock, and he was so happy to win immunity and stuff like that. It felt like kind of a positive episode for Tommi there. But I think we're back to under the radar territory, even bordering on an under the radar one. I don't really remember Tommi in this episode much at all. I think do we go with a 1? I hate to do it to him, but he got no confessionals. I can't recall a single other conversation he had in the episode. I think I gotta go with an under the radar 1, honestly. I might be missing something. Maybe there was like a big scene I'm not recalling. I could bump him up to a 2, but I think it's gotta be an under the radar here. Yeah, just not much for Tommi in this episode. So, those are the Edgic ratings for the week. A little bit all over the place, not perfect. The science of this season especially is so different than what I would normally do with even a normal Australian season, let alone a normal American season. So I feel like it's a lot harder to give exact Edgic ratings here, but trying my best. And so then let's move on to the Contender Rankings, where I rank every player left in the game on from most to least likely to win the game based on the edit. I did it for episodes 4 and 5. We can take a look at Tony, who went out. Tony, I had moving up in the ranks and moving up to top 5. I had him at number 5 in episode 3. I felt like Tony, I didn't really think Tony would go that far. I mean, I predicted in my last video that Tony would get voted out in the next episode. But I felt like Tony's edit was still like, it still felt like he was a central character on the World Tribe. He was kind of the narrator of the World Tribe for episodes 2 and 3. And he was kind of painted as this kind of rootable underdog, I felt like, on that tribe, who was just trying to get a foothold, but wasn't really able to find it necessarily. So I felt like he had a good narrative, even though I didn't necessarily think he would go that far. So he drops to the bottom. That makes sense. Sarah, I had Sarah dead last in episode 1. We got like nothing from Sarah in the premiere. And then I felt like she got some, we got more content from her in 2 and 3, which made me feel like it's going up, but that premiere was still pretty weak. And then as we get into the episodes like 3 and 4, she kind of, I felt I didn't really move her up too much. She was above the people that were getting like no content, but still not that high because her edit was pretty negative in terms of just being all over the place. And so, yeah, again, makes sense. Kirby is the biggest shock here. I had Kirby very high. I had Kirby on a watch list from episode 1. I felt like putting Kirby at number 5. Over like Shonee and Luke was maybe surprising to some people, but I felt like there was something going on with Kirby's edit. And then she shoots all the way up to number 2, episodes 2 and 3. Huge edit. She felt like such a focal point. I drop her down below Luke, then comes above her. I felt like things were not going quite as well for Kirby. She was still there, but not as much. And then, now drops all the way to the bottom, getting voted out. So pretty shocking to see Kirby go. And so let's talk about who I think is in last place. I think I've had last place all the same the whole time since the premiere, where Sarah was last place. I think we're going to change it again. I think Tommi is moving to last place. Tommi has fallen. I gave him hope. I put him 4th in the bottom at the beginning, then 3rd from the bottom, then 2nd from the bottom, and now I'm putting him at the bottom because it's just been so little. The only stuff he gets is so circumstantial, like when he wins immunity. They're giving him so it's very sad. I think he seems like a really nice guy. I really enjoy when we do see him in the show, but I mean I'm not saying like it's terrible. I'm not trying to like crap on the character they're painting for Tommi. I just think that I'd like to see more of him, and I just think that it's pretty unlikely that he wins the season because he really has not gotten a whole lot so far. I'm going to put Janine second to last. Congrats, Janine, moving up from dead last. I think that this was a really good episode for her, but it is like kind of too little too late. I mean, we're like halfway through the season, over halfway through the season at this point, and she's like gotten so nothing up to this point that I don't think she's winning. Maybe it's some crazy big breakout, more so than Tommi, but it's still not enough to make me move her any higher. Although this was a very good episode for her. This could be the start of a great narrative that Janine goes on for the rest of the season, but I think it's not super likely. Next, I'm going to make a big move. I think this is going to hurt. Okay, this is going to hurt, but I'm bumping Lisa down to third from the bottom. Technically still in line with who she was before, but man, I had Lisa so high in the early days. I really liked her edit in the premiere, but ever since then, it's just been nothing. We just have not gotten any of Lisa. She has become arguably the least important of the International 3 pretty much since the premiere. Even less so than Tommi. Tommy's gotten like nothing, but at least like he's given some scraps because they want to give him something. But Lisa's gotten had this great premiere, which keeps her a little bit higher, but then just so little since then. And I mean, for Lisa's playstyle and her type of character, I think that makes sense. I still think she could win, but we're 6 episodes in, and I feel like she's not been given a lot of credit for things she could be given credit for. I just don't think it's looking great for Lisa, unfortunately. I'm going to put Kass fourth on the bottom. Congrats, moved up. I've seen some Kass defenders out there in the Edgic community and whatnot. I've seen some people putting Kass top 2 in their rankings. I think that's a little bit extreme. She's still gotten a pretty small edit. I think that she is kind of a foil in a sense. She's kind of painted as the foil that could bring it down. And I was thinking about this when I was in the middle of the premiere, actually. I was thinking, it kind of feels like this is it's going good for Parvati and Cirie right now. If it doesn't, Rob is the person to be the foil to them. But then Rob got voted out. So that immediately got killed. And I think Kass has kind of taken that up a little bit, that she's maybe the foil to Parvati in a sense. And that's kind of the hope that people are latching onto. But she's still gotten so little content. And it makes me think that sure, she's kind of the foil to the Parvati Cirie show. But if she is the foil, she's gonna lose. I think in that dynamic. So yeah, I am enjoying Kass. I hope to see more of her, but I don't think it's looking great for her as of right now. And then I'm going to put Cirie at number 4. Actually, no. You know what? Screw it. I'm putting Shonee at number 4. I'm moving her. I moved her above Cirie the previous episode. I'm moving her back down. I felt like this was not a great episode for her. I mean, she wasn't really involved in stuff. You could argue that she was shielded, maybe. But I just feel I don't know. I just don't feel like there's a lot there. I feel like her position and her story is kind of confusing. It was leading towards this Black Mamba, Black Widow alliance, and then that immediately falls apart. I don't know where Shonee is at this point. I don't know what the story is there. She's gotten consistent content, but I think for an Australian show, if Shonee won this season of Australian Survivor, I feel like she'd be getting a much better edit than she is. Shonee has gotten much better edits in her last couple of seasons than she has in this one, in my opinion. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think that she's winning. I mean, she's gotten obviously better content than the 4 below her. I think there's a big shift between the 4 on the bottom and the 4 on the top, but I still think it's not super there. I don't know. It's possible, but I would think it'd be more. I'm putting Cirie at number 3. I actually feel pretty strongly about that now that I reconsidered it, because I think Cirie, yes, I mean, Cirie is Cirie. You'd think she should get a better edit than this, but I also think that, like, I feel like she has been, like, credited with moves. I think she's been in a really good position. She's been pretty consistently there, and I can see the trajectory more for her than I can for Shonee, who feels a little bit more in the ether, both position-wise and story-wise. I feel like Cirie, again, I go back to, from that first episode, I had her very high. I had her at number 2 after the premiere. She moved down, but she's always been pretty high on my list, more so than a lot of people. I mean, I don't think that Cirie's had, like, this phenomenal edit, but, like, Cirie's kind of she's not, like, the most out there player, right? I mean, she is a legend, but she's not, like, doing crazy stuff in the way that, like, Parvati or Luke could, like, are much more bombastic character types. You know, I think that Cirie, or Kirby, who was ahead of her before, also a very bombastic character. I think that, like, Cirie's edit has been good. I think that, you know, again, I feel like she kind of gets credit for this move. You know, kind of pinning it on Kirby. I just feel like she's kind of been involved in a lot of the decisions so far. I can see it. I can see it for Cirie. I mean, I don't think it's like, you know, again, I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's good. She hasn't got a ton of content, but it's enough. And then I'm going to put Luke at number 2. Luke has shot up my rankings. I had him pretty low in the premiere. I had him at number 7. I felt like he had a strong intro, but then not a lot after that point. But then he had better content in episode 2, and I felt like he was maybe a little bit shielded from the David Alliance. I know that people say that Australian Survivor doesn't shield their winners. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's still, I'm still going to use it as analysis, even if it's not true. I mean, it's something to talk about. So yeah, I mean, I think that he was better there. I felt like he had pretty good content. He was one of the most consistent people for the first 3 episodes. I moved him up to number 4 or number 1 in episode 4. Partially because I just wanted Luke to be number 1 at one point, because I love Luke, but also because I felt like there was a really strong point in episode 4 where Luke locks in a final 2 with Janine, and that was very explicitly shown. And Luke was also given a lot of credit for making the George move happen. I felt like that it felt very purposeful to paint Luke in a good light as someone that was like likely to go far in the game. Not, you know, maybe Luke and Janine are in the final 2, but even if they're not, like hearing him say final 2 to someone, like that's a like a edit nugget that I really picked up on. And then again, I felt like giving him credit for like sorry, episode 4 was not the George boot, but like I think episode 3 was really good for him. He kind of got credit for that when he didn't need credit for that. And then by episode 4, I felt like he was in a pretty decent place. Yeah, I felt like things were on the upward trajectory for Luke. I moved him back down to number 2 in episode 5 and episode 6, just because, you know, we'll get to Parvati, but, you know, he hasn't gotten as much content. But he's been pretty consistent. He's been there. He's been getting much better content than a lot of the people below. I do think, in a sense, he's been getting a more favorable edit than he could be. I think he could be dunked on a little bit more than he is. I think that he's not been playing phenomenally. I think he's probably in a rockier position than he's maybe ever been in any. I mean, I've watched Luke play on many seasons of TV. This is probably the rockiest I've seen him. Not necessarily through his own faults, just through kind of chaotic and gameplay and a lot of really good players being here. But nonetheless, I feel like his edit has been pretty good despite that. So, yeah. And then I'm going to put Parvati number 1. Big shocker. I mean, Parvati's gotten so much content. I mean, if we look at the confessional time here, she is at nearly 12 minutes of confessional time in the first 6 episodes, 11:56. Luke is number 2 at almost 6 minutes, half the confessional time of Parvati. That is egregious. That is egregious. And if we look at the confessional count, Parvati is in the lead at, well, this says 50. Somewhere else I saw it say 51, but this one says 50 compared to other people. Luke is at 28. And I mean, you look at Tommi. Tommy's at 4, right? So, I mean, compared to other people, it's so extreme. I mean, she's literally over twice the time of the second place people here. Shonee and Cirie, they're in it. And then look, there's a massive dip after that. But I mean, there's such a huge dip here. I don't know. I mean, listen, could Parvati be getting like a Russell Hantz edit, even King George edit, you know, and then like she, you know, I feel like she's been kind of villainous. She's like this big, huge character on the season, maybe a little bit villainous on the season. One of the, you know, she's definitely one of the more iconic, you know, people here, obviously. And then maybe she falls just short. You know, I don't know if she would lose at the end like Russell, but she could, like, you know, be a fallen angel right at the end, maybe. I don't know. I mean, like, that's the best case for Parvati not winning. Otherwise, I mean, her content is so extreme that, like, it just feels like it's too obvious if it is the case that Parvati wins. And listen, I love Parvati. She's one of my all-time favorites. I think she's phenomenal. But, I mean, I would argue Parvati is the best Survivor player of all time. But, like, I'm rooting for her to lose at this point, which is so weird. Just because the edit's so egregious, it kind of ruins it. It's making it way too obvious, too over the top, and just like I'm sick. I'm sickened. Not like sickened and like I'm like disgusted. I'm just like I feel sick. Like I'm so full of Parvati content. I mean, I just watched a whole season of Parvati on Deal No Deal Island earlier this year. I watched her on The Traders last year, and now I'm getting like it's the Parvati show. And I love Parvati, but I love so many of these other people. I love Luke. I love Cirie. I love Shonee. I love Lisa. I mean, even I don't know Kass and Tommi as well, but I really love the energy they have on this season. I want to see more of these people. I don't want it to just be the Parvati show the whole time. And I just think that's it's just a little bit disappointing to me. I mean, I'm used to lopsided edits in Australian Survivor, but I just feel like this is not the time. I feel like the season's been great. Okay. I mean, it's been very good, but I feel like the lopsided edit is tarnishing it a little bit for me. It's making it a little bit less fun. And maybe it's because, you know, a big part of my viewing experience is it being my job to analyze the edit, and it's making it not the edit doesn't give me a whole lot to work with. But also I just think it's just more fun to like experience it, like not knowing what's going to happen, like being more feeling the win and getting, you know, equal coverage of all the different players and really feeling like you have a sense of all the people. It's why like there's an episode from, I won't spoil it, what happened. There's an episode from Australian Survivor 2017 that's I've said for some time is my favorite episode of Survivor. Maybe not my favorite episode anymore, but it's one of my favorite episodes. Not necessarily because it's like the craziest in the world, but because I just felt like everyone got covered. I felt like I got a good sense of every single person in the game, and everyone was involved in something happening. I mean, this isn't a spoiler, but it's the auction episode in Australian Survivor 2017. If you know what that is, then you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you don't. But I love that episode because I feel like you got such a good sense of everybody. And I feel like with this season, it's reaching the point that it's like the opposite of that. I don't like this kind of lopsided edits really, and it's not. I mean, it's clearly not from bad casting. I mean, this is the best cast of all time, and we're getting this type of edit that makes it even worse for me, right? Even like at least with like a Ghost Island, it's like okay, well, it's a Dom and Wendell show, but like that's kind of okay. I don't need to see like Seabass and Chelsea all that much. Like I'm not that concerned, But with this season, I'm like, I'm not looking for that type of edit. It's disappointing to me. And listen, I still love this season. I think it's still been great so far, and I have high hopes for the rest that it will bring. that's just a little bit of my perspective on like the edit, I guess, of this season. I feel like that's not necessarily something you're going to get from other podcasters on how they feel about this season. That's kind of how I feel because I am the Edgic guy. It just feels overly extreme. And I mean, Australian Survivor is known to do that. But I just, this is not the season for it. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens with Parvati moving forward. Love Parvati, but man, I'm like eating a whole tub of Parvati ice cream. It's too much. Like Cirie said, if you're not gonna finish it, you better not start it. I've started this cup of Parvati ice cream, and I can't stop eating it now. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I've been enjoying the season so far. Let's select our top 5. And we can bring this over and plug it in here. I mean, Kass sneaking her way into the top 5. We could probably, honestly, you know what? Like, we can just do that. We can cut it down to the top 4 because it's really just the top 4 in my opinion at this point. And yeah, I mean, that is week 2 of Australian Survivor Australia versus the world. I always get confused because it's Australian Survivor, but it's called Australia versus the world, so it's difficult to know what to say. Whenever I record the intro, I don't know what to say. But Australia versus the world, great week. It's been great so far. I've really enjoyed a lot of the episodes. I think episode 2 is still my favorite thus far. That was such a good episode, and I was like so happy that David got voted out. I feel like this week, I didn't enjoy this week as much as I enjoyed the first week. I think we lost a little bit of that presence of some of those guys from the first week, and then we lost Tony. I feel like that episode was probably the worst episode so far. I was kind of sad. It was just kind of a bummer, that episode, I guess. The merge episodes were okay. I felt like episode 6 was such a lopsided edit that it was like pretty egregious, all like the Parvati and Kirby show. Episode 5 a little bit better, but I'm still enjoying this season. I think it's still been really exciting. There's still been some great stuff, even though the edit is maybe disappointing me a little bit. As for my predictions for next week, that I do at the end of every video, I mean, this is difficult. Who do I think is going out next? Now, I mean, I'm going to talk about the preview that we saw at the end of episode 6, because I think that's going to inform me the most. If you don't want to know about that, skip ahead, I guess. We saw like a fight going down at Tribal, kind of between Tommi and Parvati, and like Parvati was saying she was going to play the idol on either her or Cirie. I think that Parvati plays the idol correctly, and I think Tommi goes home because of it. Tommi being like kind of the vocal one against him. That's kind of my prediction based on the way that was looking to me, just based on that. I do think that International 3 will start to be a problem for people moving forward. I think it was good to work with them for this vote, but I think now, I think a world person is going home. I don't think an Australian is going home next week. I think it is time for the Aussies to take a stand and go against the world. I think Parvati and Cirie especially kind of need to break those people up because, they can't, if they go too far with them, it could cause trouble, right? So, yeah, I think it is a world person. I think it seems like it's probably going to be Tommi or Cirie. I could see it being Cirie. I think it's possible. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it'd be Parvati, but it could be. I don't think it's Kass. That's the world person I think it's least likely to be. I just think that there's more for Kass's story maybe to be told. Also, she maybe will get some kind of power from a scroll or something. We don't know what that is yet, so I mean, I'm very excited to see what that will be. As for the Aussies, I don't really see any of the Aussies going home, honestly. I don't think it'll be Luke, especially not after just losing Kirby. I think we kind of need to lose a lesser person in the edit. If we talk about Edgic, often it's good to have like variability in the edit where it's like if someone goes home that's like a really big character in the edit, it's good to have like the next episode have someone that's a little bit more low key in the edit. That's not like necessarily always the case, but it's a good rule of thumb. And yeah, yeah, that's about all I got. I mean, if I were to predict 3 people that I think are going to go home next week, I think I'm going to say Tommi. I'm going to say Cirie. And I'm going to say Lisa or Shonee, maybe. I think Lisa. Wait, how many people? We got to have a double, right? Hold on. We got to have a lot of people go home. How many people are left? We got 8 people left. If I just counted 3 people that goes home, how many people are left? That's 5 people for the finale. I don't know if they're going to have 5 people for the finale. Maybe. They could. Yeah. Anyways, that's my prediction. Something along those lines. So, anyways, that's all I've got for week 2 of Australian Survivor versus the world. I'm having a blast so far this season. It's been so much fun to read online. We got so many great comments on the last episode, so much great engagement. I really, really appreciated it. So please leave your thoughts down below if you enjoyed, if you have any thoughts on the season. I've responded to a lot of them. If I haven't responded, trust, I'm still planning to read them all. It's been a lot. It's been a very busy week for me, but I've really enjoyed all of the responses below. So comment again. Press that subscribe button if you want to see my future coverage of Australia versus the world, as well as Survivor 49 coming soon, and other Survivor and reality TV related content on the pipeline. And that's what I have. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Stay frosty, y'all.